Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hello everybody,
Hi everyone,
I'm Sally
and I'm Marty.
and we are crafting together. Thank you for joining us on this, our inaugural video.
Yes. Yeah, welcome everybody. It's great to have you here, and hopefully you will join us on our journey and craft along with us.
Crafting is fun, but it's much more fun in company.
That's very true.
I like to share my projects, share my progress, share my mistakes, learn from my mistakes, and learn from other people's mistakes.
Yes, there's no point in reinventing the wheel.
No, just as well as I'm not very good with power tools.
Neither am I,
I'm
but
rather afraid of them, as a matter of fact.
maybe that's something that we should concentrate on down the track. Because woodcraft is a craft.
This is true, but my brother does that. I'll let him do it. Yeah.
Must be a brother thing, mine does too.
Yeah. So Marty, what got you interested in craft? Do you remember when you started?
Oh, good question. I think I've always had an interest in craft, going back to childhood, but probably when craft really took off for me, and I did start with beading and jewellery making.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, with diabetic neuropathy, I don't have the dexterity and the ability to feel the little beads anymore, so I don't do as much of that these days, but particularly crochet, which is my main craft, took off for me after my daughter was born, because I saw all these really, really cute things that you could crochet, and I kept saying to people, oh, could you do this for me, could you do that for me, and in the end I was like, you know what, just learn and do it myself.
Yes. Yeah. And how old's your daughter now?
12.
She just turned 12, didn't she?
Yep.
Yes. So, and she's learning craft as well.
Yeah, finally I've got her interested. She was always very jealous of me crocheting. Jealous because crochet had my attention, and being an only child, she loves that attention.
Yeah.
So I think she resisted yarn craft for so long because of that.
Yeah.
And what about yourself, Sally?
Well, I started knitting and crochet, or knitting that I specifically remember, when I was around about 4 years old. I was the eldest of quite a large family, and my mother knitted for us. So this was 60 years ago, so a little while. And by giving us needles and yarn, it stopped us pestering her quite so much when she was doing it, because rather than being jealous, I wanted to do it too.
Yep.
So I remember starting, and I remember going up to Mum and saying, Mummy, it's gone wrong. Because she would start us with 8-ply yarn and size, well, they called them 8s, but they were 4mm needles. Yes. And she would cast on 20 stitches, and then, why don't you make a scarf for Daddy? And so you'd go up to her and say, Mummy, more than 20, or
a little less
or whatever. So she'd fix it, and then you do a bit more. And I'm pretty sure my father lost 8 wonky scarves on the trains over the years, going to and from work.
Yes, I think that was my first ever knitting project as well. My grandmother taught me to knit when I was probably about 6, a bit older than you were. But I've only ever really been able to knit in straight lines. I've never done much more with it.
Well, knitting is in straight lines as a rule.
Well, yeah.
And I have always enjoyed knitting, and obviously take a break at times, but it would revive itself, and I can remember knitting in high school and taking my work with me at lunchtime and sitting with my girlfriends and knitting. And I made a fair old jumper one year. This would have been early 70s. And another time I made a very nice lacy mohair jumper.
Yep, nice.
With a big collar and everything. And then my mother was having a baby, so I would have been 13. and I started knitting a coat for a baby. The baby was about 12 by the time it was finished. It never did get finished, I don't think. But I would put it aside for a while and do something else and then come back to it. You know, the knitting was always there.
And I think that's the thing that's so great about yarn craft is that no matter what it is, you can put it down, come back to it later, and particularly crochet I love because it's so portable. You have your skein yarn, you have your hook, and it fits in your bag.
That's right.
Take it on the train, you can do it at the doctor's surgery while you're waiting. It's just so portable.
It is good. And it is very portable, and of course then you can make these squares like you're making at the moment, and the others, and the ones in the baskets behind us, and then put them together as blankets. I'm putting this one together at present.
And here's the one that I'm doing. The ends aren't sewn in, so please excuse. It will look much better.
Well, I'm further on than you are. I'm up to the border, and I did all the ends last week. And
because that's our favourite thing to do is sew in ends.
I don't mind it too much. Actually, I know it's not popular, but quite frankly, I don't mind doing it.
I always try and crochet over mine as I go, so I don't have to.
Yes, I know, and I do that too. But I like to then tuck them in because it's a real nuisance if things start to come apart when you're trying to use it as a blanket.
Yeah.
And the reason we're making these blankets specifically is to make crisis blankets. We're sitting here at the Sale neighbourhood house, and we have started doing these crisis blankets with the goal to have a store of them available when crises come up, which, well, this year there were the fires and floods nearby, and when people have to evacuate, they can't always remember, you can't expect them to remember to take a blanket, and they've got other things on their minds. Or it's not that long ago that the house in the next street burnt down.
Yeah. So there's always those things cropping up, but there's also a lot of homelessness still around.
That's exactly right.
Cost of living going up, people are really struggling.
Yes,
even with just their,
it certainly is.
You know, electricity bills and things like that to keep themselves warm during the winter.
And so by having a bunch of crisis blankets available through the neighbourhood house, other organisations could put the call out and we could take a few round. I'd quite like to have about 6 in store at any one time, but of course they might all disappear in one day, who knows, which is fine because it's something that's always ongoing. Great thing about the squares, aside from them being portable, is if you have a bit of leftover yarn from a project, you can easily do a square or two.
Yeah, that's it. And so what we've said to people is that if they could do that and then donate the squares to us. So we've got lots of different squares that have been donated from lots of different people, and it doesn't matter about size, tension, all that. We make it work and we put it together and create these blankets. And
different people have different ways of approaching it. You and I have both got totally different ways of approaching it.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to want like with like. Even though I approve of mixing them up, I have real trouble actually approaching it.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's one of those things. That's okay, we can all do them different, and they don't all come from just one person after all.
So the one that I'm doing here obviously has got several different size squares that have been donated, and I've tried to get them all together so that it forms you know, something that will go together
and you're consistent with colour so that they blend together.
Oh yes, I had a bit of almost a meltdown the other night when I couldn't find any more.
Oh my God. I was here the day that you pulled them all out of the basket to decide what goes with what, whereas this one, all the squares were made by the same person, although the ones in the middle here are twice the size, well, 4 times the size of the ones around the edges, but they were made by the same person in the same style, so they go together differently. I didn't have to do too much adjustment with them.
But that's okay. It's a bit of a challenge. It's a bit of fun.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I really enjoy it. I actually quite enjoy putting together other people's work. You know how when you go to the op shops, every now and then you'll find something that somebody started and never finished?
Yeah.
I've had a few of those projects over the years, and I've really enjoyed finishing them off. Both crochet or knitting and sewing. I've done a couple of quilts in the past based on somebody else's work.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, to see it finally actualised. Yeah.
For one thing, their approach to colour is often quite different, and mine could become not boring exactly, but very much the same old if I just did it my way every single time. And so using somebody else's approach can be quite good.
Yeah. So, Sally, should we tell everybody a bit about yarn with us?
That's a good idea.
So, Sally and I are both part of a group. I'm not really sure exactly how we sort of formed and came together and morphed over time and moved venues and...
It started at a local cafe called the Gippy Nook, and I believe Natalie started it, the owner.
Yeah.
And she put the call out for anybody who wanted to crochet together.
Yep, that's where I saw it and came along. Yep.
And so did I. And to begin with, I couldn't go because I was actually working here. But then things happened that I couldn't work here for a while, so I went along. Yeah,
and so basically, we've given ourselves a name. It's Yarn With Us, and we have a little logo and everything now, so we're all looking pretty profesh. And we're about to open up another branch locally as well.
That's fun.
And we're basically just a group of yarners, if you like.
Yeah, yarners.
We come together once or twice a week, and we bring our projects along, and we just have fun yakking, and we've learned a lot from each other.
Certainly have.
We share a lot of knowledge, and it's been fantastic. So at the moment within the group, so we're mostly crocheters. We've got a few knitters. We've had a bit of a trend going with the Hexagon Cardigans.
Oh yes, I know.
Somebody started it, and now it's run through the group. Oh, you started it, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I saw it somewhere else. Wasn't my idea. The Hexagon Cardigan has been around for a long time. I don't want people to think that it's a brand new 2023-24 thing, but I know it's been around for a long time. Well, crochet's been around for a long time, but I attend another group at one of the churches, the Salvation Army, and there were people there doing it. And I hadn't thought about it before I saw them doing it. And I thought, oh, what a good idea. And so that's when I started doing them.
Well, it's gonna be a trend that takes off, because
absolutely,
we're all doing it, and we're going to be out there this winter sporting our Hexagon cardigans.
Well, have you seen how many are shown on YouTube?
I actually haven't, no. I should go and have a look.
If anyone's interested, in the description box at the bottom of the video, we will put links to things we think would be of help to people. For instance, there's a link to a very, very good tutorial on the Hexagon cardigan. It's a very simple thing to do. It's basically, I'll borrow another one of these.
Yep.
Oh, this one. A granny square, only you put in 2 extra corners. So instead of 4 corners, you have got 6.
The hexagon.
Exactly
hence
right.
the hexagon.
That's right.
Not hexed.
And no, it's an oblong.
It's
a rectangle.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so then you fold it up, and it comes out brilliant, and it's so effective. I'm sure people have seen it, and whatever. Well, Meg, one of our members, has made a couple for very small children, and I've done some for very big adults, and then there's quite a few in between, and any colour any style. They just turn out wonderful.
And so simple.
Yes.
And as you said, you can then add your own embellishments onto it to make it uniquely your own.
Exactly, yes. And so we'll include a link to that, and we might... I've gone around the corner by mistake. No, I haven't. No, I haven't made a mistake after all. I was just looking at it funny.
That heart sinking moment when you think you've done it.
Yes, so take that bit out. So anyway, 60-something years of experience, and I still make mistakes.
Very good lesson for everybody out there,
it
especially
certainly
beginners.
is.
Don't be too hard on yourselves.
So let's talk about what this channel's about.
Sure. Would you like to...
Okay, well, we, both Marty and I, are very keen on craft, and we both have a similar philosophy about it.
So a big part of our philosophy that we share is around the reduce, reuse, recycle. Being able to upcycle things, being able to reduce our carbon imprint on the planet, and also for myself, I won't speak for Sally, but I think also to be able to reduce that consumerism driven mindset that a lot of us have. So for myself, that is anything I can make myself, I begrudge paying for. And I also like to do projects from as much as from scratch as humanly possible, which we will show you a little bit down the track in terms of, spinning the yarn.
Oh yes, that's coming up soon.
So, going from sheep straight through to a finished project.
Yeah. When it comes to reduce, reuse, recycle, I'm very keen on that, and I have been since I was a child. I grew up next to one of the first op shops in our district, and I have 4 sisters, and we were very keen on using up yarn from them. In fact, my mother says that the ladies there started pulling their hair out trying to find enough yarn. And one of my sisters was particularly keen, and she would take down jumpers and redo them.
Yep.
And the ladies were struggling to find enough of them for her. But aside from that, upcycling is great, and that can include changing things. I bought a jacket one year, beautiful red wool jacket, and I didn't like the buttons, so I bought some new buttons and I replaced the buttons, and it looked fantastic.
It's amazing that you can, the ability we have really to make something completely change and just give it a new lease on life by making small, simple, inexpensive changes.
Yes, and you could use recycled buttons for that too.
Yeah.
If you can find enough the same.
And if you're a mad crafter like myself, which I'm sure most of you will be, something I've done in the past is actually make my own buttons from polymer clay.
Oh, have you? No, I've never done that. Well, that's something you can show me sometime, because the other thing we want to do is explore crafts we haven't done. And Marty's done some that I've never touched, and I've done some that she's never touched, and so there's that. And there's also some that neither of us have done, which we'd quite like to explore, and as beginners, see how we go. We don't want to just do things we're good at. This week we're going to a drop spindle group that Marty has done before, but I haven't, and that will be very interesting to see.
Yeah, it is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. We'll take some footage and let you know how it goes. I have mixed feelings about it, actually, to tell the truth. I watched somebody online who's really very good at it and has been doing it for quite some time, and I think it might just take up all my time and I won't end up doing anything. So I don't know how I feel about it at the moment.
Again, it's one of those things, you can do it, put it down, and come back later. And it's also, because we'll be using Turkish drop spindles, it's a very portable craft as well.
That's true, but the drop spindles cover lots. I would quite like to go along to the men's shed and get one made.
Oh yeah.
Or find a person. You can buy them off various woodworkers. Does your brother do wood turning?
No, he has 3D printed some.
Yes, I know.
But
they're green.
Yeah, greenish blue.
I want a wooden one.
I do have a wooden one that's so the lady that founded the drop spindle group here in Stratford, the Art Cult drop spindle group with me, her husband actually makes them, the wooden ones.
And they're lovely.
They are gorgeous, yeah.
So 3D printing is good. I've got nothing against it. I just like wood.
Yes, I think things made out of wood are they're gorgeous.
How about doing one like the originals, which are a stick with a bit of stone on it?
Well, we could do things like that. Yeah,
so that'd be fun.
I actually made myself a drop spindle years ago when I wanted to get into to spinning, and I got my fleece and it's still sitting in the tub. It hasn't been washed yet. But I actually made one again from polymer clay and a piece of dowel and a little metal hook.
Yeah.
Not a Turkish drop spindle. I'm not quite sure what that one's. It's just a drop spindle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something that I particularly enjoy about craft is you can go out and you can buy all your tools.
Yeah.
Or you can make them.
Yeah,
I've actually carved myself a crochet.
Have you really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've got it in my thing there. But that's where I got the idea of doing something from start to finish. Once I carved this crochet hook and it worked, I was like, well, let's do a project completely from scratch. So let's get the fleece from the sheep.
I have a fleece as well. My brother grows the sheep.
Oh, it's too easy.
From my brother's sheep, and it's still sitting in the sack. I haven't used any of it. I gave some to Sue Ellen who felts.
Yep.
But aside from that, I haven't used any of it.
Well, my only reason is it's time consuming to wash it.
I know, and it makes a bit of a mess.
But so that to get the fleece to make my own spindle, and then spin on that spindle, then to crochet a project using the hook that I made.
Oh yeah, what
then
fun.
I've done the project from scratch right through to the finished project.
Yeah. I don't
That's
know.
how mad I am about crafting.
I don't know that I'm that keen. We'll see. I'll watch.
Well, you certainly catch a bug when it comes to crafting.
You can do. And then next week we're actually hosting an overdye fun day here. I have some yarn that is nice enough yarn, but I don't like the colour. It's oatmeal colour, and there's about 12 balls of it, which seems a bit of a shame to just make hats out of, or oatmeal coloured hats anyway. And so I thought, well, if I can dye it just with the generic Rick dye, with the generic Rick dye, nothing special, and experiment and see how it turns out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I've got about 12 balls, so I could do 12 different colours almost.
Yeah,
if I wanted to. And we're going to get together and have a go, and I'm going to bring some other yarn because I love op shops. That's probably where my passion goes. And I started during lockdown knitting and crocheting blankets for the homeless, and I went to every time we got out of lockdown, I'd race off to the op shops, and you know how it is, they put depending where you go, they tend to put their yarn in a big bag, and you want that bit of blue or green or whatever it is at the bottom, but you buy the whole bag.
Yeah.
So you end up with bags and lots of extra yarn.
Yeah.
Plus, I do like to do things with 2 threads to make them thicker. You also get through more yarn more quickly.
Yep.
And they grow quicker. Like this. And so I was always on the lookout for white yarn because baby yarn is really useful.
Yeah.
And when I do my scrap blankets, again, the baby holds everything together, I find.
Yeah.
So again, I would buy a bag that had 3 balls of white and 7 balls of something else.
Yeah.
And so I ended up with a lot of extra yarn, wool and acrylic. And for my blankets, here in Victoria, Australia, we tend not to have really harsh winters in the southern areas. We're in Gippsland, and we don't get snow here, or very rarely. I've seen it twice since I've lived here. And they're wet, they're wet, and it's certainly cold, but it's not extreme cold like in Northern Europe, for instance. So, generally speaking, the wool is not so essential for warmth. However, people in difficult situations without a stable place to be, am concerned about how they wash things, and I do not want to burden them with having to wash wool. And so if it's acrylic, they can just, if they get access to a washing machine once a month or whatever, they can stuff it in and wash it, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not going to shrink.
It's pretty hard wearing acrylic.
It is, and besides which, you've got lots of colours, and I do enjoy colour. So that's why I did it. I've had a bit of criticism. Somebody said, but the homeless need the warmth. Well, while this is true in general, as I said, in our area, that's our summers are more of a problem than our winters.
I'll tell you what I made. So you know the corner to corner I'm making.
Yes.
I made one of those years ago for my bed, and I actually take it camping.
Yes.
And I don't need a sleeping bag. I just throw
really?
that over me. That's how warm it is.
Yes.
So for people who think that acrylic is not warm enough,
Yeah.
you probably find, especially in our climate, it is.
Yeah. Well, perhaps if you've only got it and nothing else, it could be a bit much. But we tend to layer.
Yeah.
And so if you've got a t-shirt underneath it, yeah, I find that it's usually enough. I mean, wool's very nice to use and all of that, but to maintain it properly, adequately, it's a problem. When my first grandson was born, his grandfather, my son's father, made the little one a jumper, lovely striped jumper. Unfortunately, there were stripes of acrylic and wool.
Oh no.
And so somebody stuck it in a hot wash and then a dryer, and the stripes shrank. So could only be worn a couple of times. And that highlights the problem of wool. And it's very difficult it's actually possible to unshrink it, but it's awkward and difficult.
Yeah.
And so
I only use wool if I'm going to felt it.
yeah, well, I don't felt on purpose. Not yet. So that's where I come at with the acrylic.
Yeah.
That's why I use it. Mind you, you can get acrylic wool blends, and they're quite nice to use.
Yeah.
And I use quite a bit of cotton these days because I do it for the summer. Like this t-shirt I'm wearing.
Yes, I love that. I love the colour.
It's pretty cool, isn't it? And this is a cotton acrylic blend by Four Seasons.
And so, how do you feel in it?
I feel very comfortable. This morning, or yesterday, it would have been too hot probably.
Yeah.
But today it was getting to 24, and yes, it was really comfortable. And it's just double crochet, or one row double, one row single, and so it's got these little holes. So although it feels a bit heavy when you pick it up,
It's
because of
breathable.
all these holes, it breathes.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's absorbent because it's cotton.
Yeah.
So it's extremely comfortable, and it was very nice to use to work with.
Yeah.
Now this year, well, let's say it was would have been about 4 months ago, I suppose, beginning of spring, I decided that my summer wardrobe was looking very tatty and old and a bit frumpy, and I decided to upgrade it. And I have put into it maybe a dozen garments since.
Geez, that's you can make them very quick. You can pop them
Well,
out
I
pretty
didn't
quick.
make them all. Half of them have come from the op shop. So half of them I've made, half of them have come from the op shop, and I bought underwear new, but none of my outerwear is brand new.
And
this year.
you're covered for summer this year.
Pardon?
You're covered for summer this year.
Yes, absolutely covered. In fact, it's almost a matter of what will I wear today? It really is. It's marvellous. I'm very pleased actually, because that's what I decided to do, and I've actually done it. And then you've got to hold back and think, I've got enough. It's a sour thing, of course. I've got enough.
But this comes into our whole reduce, reuse, recycle.
That's right.
And as much as you can, support your local op shops. I think in the States they call it thrift shops.
Thrift shops.
You know, it helps your community, but it also helps the environment, it helps your hip pocket, and you know, it's less things that are going to landfill. And if you're just starting out in crafting and you want to go out there and buy all the bits and pieces that you need, please go to your local op shop. They will have a plethora of crochet hooks,
That's
knitting
right.
needles.
In fact, I've got some here that came from op shops.
You will always find them there. There's no need to go out and buy all the new fancy stuff. And until you like your style of crochet hook, it's good to try out a few different types. I tend to prefer the curved ergonomic ones, but some of my other crafting friends prefer the straight handles. So it's very much a personal preference.
Yeah. All these knitting needles came from op shops. Well, actually, the yellow ones I might have just had for a very long time. But certainly none of them were bought new for any. Oh, look, some tortoiseshell ones. They're not real tortoiseshell, but they're almost impossible to get these days.
Yeah.
New. And then we've got crochet hooks. We've got circular needles, and these all came from op shops, big ball. So that's always worthwhile. And you're probably going to pay 50 cents a pair, sometimes more, but...
As Sally's already mentioned, you can also get your yarn from the op shop. And if you can't find it necessarily in a bag or, look for old jumpers that you might be able to frog and use them.
What do you mean frog?
Frog, it's the term that we use for when we need to pull something apart.
Why frog?
Well, that's a good question, Sally. I'm hoping you know the answer to that.
I do. That was a trick question. Frog, because you rip it back. You rip it.
Rip it. Yes.
So they call it frog. So, I think that's enough for today, Marty.
Yeah, it was great spending time with you guys today, and I hope you enjoyed what we had to say. And we promise future episodes are going to be packed full of fun and exciting things.
That's right. Perhaps a little organised too. But that's it for today. Thank you very much.
Bye.
I don't know how long this went for. Quite a long time, I think.